The alarm bells rang through the high-security sector of Federation Station Alpha 9, a piercing digital shriek that seemed designed to liquefy the brain rather than alert it. To the 12 species of alien security personnel scrambling through the command center, the sound was a call to panic. To Ronin, it was just noise. Annoying, rhythmic, artificial noise. Ronin sat on a bench made of some polished composite alloy that felt too cold and too slick against his trousers. He didn't move. He didn't check a holographic datapad. He didn't shout into a wrist communicator. He simply sat, his back resting against the wall, his heavy canvas coat pooled around him like a fortress. The coat was a relic, much like the man inside it. It was stained with the dust of a dozen worlds, stiff with oil and age, and it smelled of tobacco and rain. Scents that had no place in the sterilized, recycled atmosphere of a galactic space station. He watched the chaos unfold with eyes the color of gunmetal gray. They were eyes that had seen empires rise and fall, eyes that had looked down the sights of a rifle in mud-filled trenches and across the vacuum of space. They were tired eyes, but they were not dull. They were sharp, tracking every movement in the room with a predator's economy. Commander Xylos, the insectoid officer in charge of the sector, was vibrating with terror. His multi-jointed limbs clicked against the console as he frantically swiped through screens of data. "Reboot the thermal grid," Xylos screamed, his voice cracking. "I want eyes on every corridor, nothing just vanishes. Physics forbids it." "The sensors are clear, Commander," a subordinate shouted back. A reptilian guard whose scales were turning a pale, sickly gray from stress. "Thermal is negative, motion is negative. Bioscans are reading only us. The sector is empty." "It's not empty." Xylos slammed a fist onto the console. "3 of my best guards are dead in the hallway. Throat slit, no footprints. No heat signature. We are being hunted by a ghost." Ronin shifted his weight, the leather of his boots creaking. The sound was low, but in the frantic room it was distinct. It was the sound of something real in a room full of projections. He reached into the deep pocket of his coat and pulled out a small, battered tin. He popped the lid with a thumb, crack, and took a pinch of tobacco. He placed it inside his lower lip, feeling the familiar burn. It grounded him. It was a small piece of earth, a small piece of the old ways, right here in the middle of a nightmare. "You're looking at the screens again, Xylos," Ronin said. His voice was a low rumble, like distant thunder rolling over a valley. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the panic instantly. Xylos spun around, his mandibles twitching. "This is a Class A emergency, human. If you aren't going to help, stay out of the way. We are dealing with a Specter. A cloaked assassin. Technology beyond your comprehension." Ronin chewed slowly. "I comprehend just fine. You got a bad guy you can't see, and you got a bunch of expensive toys that are telling you he ain't there. So you trust the toys and ignore the dead bodies." He spat a speck of tobacco onto the pristine white floor. "That's how good men die. They wait for permission from a machine to believe what their gut is already screaming at them." "And what does your gut say?" Xylos sneered, though his eyes darted nervously to the blast doors. "My gut says he's already in the room," Ronin said calmly. The silence that followed was heavy. The air recyclers hummed. The lights buzzed. Every guard in the room froze, their weapons raised, aiming at shadows, at corners, at empty air. They were terrified. They were trained to fight enemies they could target, enemies that showed up as red dots on a heads-up display. They didn't know how to fight the dark. Ronin stood up. He didn't rush. He unfolded his frame slowly, letting his joints pop. He was a big man, broad-shouldered and solid, built like a wall that had weathered 1,000 storms. He adjusted his hat, pulling the brim low. He didn't draw the massive revolver strapped to his thigh. Not yet. A gun is a tool, not a magic wand. You don't pull it until you know where the bullet is going. He began to walk through the command center. He moved with a strange, gliding gait, his boots rolling heel to toe to minimize sound. He wasn't looking at the corners. He wasn't looking at the ceiling. He was feeling the room. If you've ever been deep in the woods when the sun goes down, you know the feeling. The birds stop singing, the wind changes. The hair on the back of your neck stands up. It's not data. It's not something you can put on a chart. It's the primal part of your brain, the part that remembers when we were prey, telling you that a predator is close. Most people drown that voice out with noise and logic. Ronin had spent 50 years learning to listen to it. He walked past a row of shivering technicians and stopped near a maintenance station. It was cluttered with tools, laser welders, hydrospanners, cleaning solvents. His eyes scanned the mess. He wasn't looking for a weapon. He was looking for an equalizer. His hand closed around the handle of a heavy industrial canister. It was labeled hull sealant, grade 4. It was a thick, viscous gray sludge used to patch micrometeorite impacts on the station's outer skin. It was heavy, messy, and decidedly low-tech. "What are you doing?" Xylos demanded, stepping forward. "That is construction material. We need pulse rifles. We need electromagnetic pulse grenades. Put that down." Ronin ignored him. He pried the lid off the canister. The smell hit him, acrid, chemical, thick. He dipped 2 fingers into the sludge. It was sticky. It clung to his skin like tar. "Perfect," he whispered. He walked to the center of the room. The command center was designed with a central airflow system. Cool recycled air was pumped in from vents near the floor and pulled out through vents in the ceiling. It created a constant, gentle updraft, a steady river of air that nobody ever noticed. Ronin stood in the middle of that river. He closed his eyes. "He's lost his mind," a guard whispered. "The human has snapped. Quiet." Xylos hissed, though he didn't know why. Ronin stood like a statue. He breathed in through his nose, slow and deep. He blocked out the hum of the computers. He blocked out the whimper of the frightened technician in the corner. He focused entirely on the air. Matter takes up space. It's the first rule of existence. You can bend light around an object to make it invisible. You can mask its heat. You can dampen its sound, but you cannot make it not exist. If a man or a creature is standing in a room, he is displacing air. He is a rock in the stream. The air has to flow around him. Ronin felt the draft on his left cheek. Constant, steady. He felt the draft on his neck. Constant, steady. He felt the draft on his right hand. Disrupted. There was a turbulence, a tiny, imperceptible eddy in the current. Something was standing 3 feet to his right, blocking the airflow. It was breathing. He couldn't hear it, but he could feel the subtle shift in pressure. A dead spot in the wind. The Specter was arrogant, they always are. When you have technology that makes you a god, you stop fearing the mortals. You get sloppy. You stand in the open because you think no one can see you. You forget that being unseen isn't the same as being gone. The creature was close. It was watching Xylos, probably calculating the angle for the kill strike. It dismissed the old human standing with a bucket of paint as a non-threat. Just a primitive relic playing with mud. That was its last mistake. Ronin's eyes snapped open. The transition from statue to striker was instantaneous. There was no wind-up, no telegraphing of the move. It was the explosive snap of a trap closing. He swung the canister in a wide, violent arc. He didn't aim at a person. He aimed at the emptiness. The gray sludge flew out of the container in a wide sheet. A fan of viscous liquid spreading through the air. Splat. The sound was wet, heavy, and final. The paint didn't hit the floor. It didn't hit the wall. It hit something in midair. For a heartbeat, the room was frozen in a tableau of impossibility. The gray sealant stopped in the void, suspended. Then gravity took over. The paint began to drip. It ran down invisible contours. It outlined a head, a shoulder, a raised arm holding a curved, serrated blade. A torso armored in sleek, high-tech plating. The Specter stood revealed. It was a silhouette of gray sludge against the stark white of the command center. The invisibility cloak was still active, bending light frantically, but it couldn't bend the paint. The Predator was wearing its mistake. "There," Ronin said, one word. Flat cold. The creature shrieked. It wasn't a vocal sound, it was a synthesized tear in the air, a sound of pure rage and shock. The Specter lunged. It moved with terrifying speed, a blur of motion. The blade swept down, aiming for Ronin's neck. Any other guard in that room would have died. They would have tried to backpedal, to raise a rifle, to find cover. They would have been too slow. Ronin didn't back up, he stepped in. It's a counterintuitive thing, stepping into a knife fight. Every instinct screams at you to get away. But experience teaches you differently. Distance is the enemy's friend when they have the momentum. You have to choke the attack before it reaches full speed. You have to jam the gears. Ronin caught the assassin's wrist with his left hand. The impact was jarring. It felt like catching a falling anvil. The sheer kinetic force of the alien creature threatened to dislocate his shoulder, but Ronin's grip was iron. It was the grip of a man who had worked with his hands since he was old enough to walk. He locked his fingers around the invisible, paint-slicked wrist, and he dug in. "Not today, son," Ronin grunted through gritted teeth. He twisted his hips, using the creature's own momentum to swing it off balance. At the same time, his right hand moved to his thigh. The draw was smooth, practiced 1,000,000 times in the mirror, 1,000,000 times on the range, and 1,000 times in the dust. The revolver cleared leather. It was a massive piece of hardware, a relic from a time when stopping power meant putting a hole in something the size of a dinner plate. It didn't whine like a laser. It didn't hum like a plasma caster. It was a cold slab of steel and mechanics. He jammed the barrel into the paint-covered midsection of the assassin. Point-blank boom. The sound was apocalyptic in the enclosed space. It wasn't just a noise, it was a physical blow. The pressure wave rattled the teeth of everyone in the room. The kinetic round, a solid slug of lead and copper, slammed into the Specter with the force of a freight train. Energy shields are designed to disperse heat. They are designed to refract lasers. They are not designed to stop 4 ounces of metal moving at supersonic speeds. The slug didn't care about the tech, it simply punched through. The assassin was lifted off its feet. It flew backward, crashing into a console, shattering glass and sparking electronics. The invisibility field flickered, sparked, and died. The creature lay on the deck. It was a lanky reptilian thing, gasping for air, violet blood mixing with the gray paint. It tried to rise, its clawed hand reaching for the dropped blade. Ronin was already there. He moved with a terrifying determination. He kicked the blade away, sending it skittering across the floor. Then he placed his heavy boot on the creature's chest and leaned in. He cocked the hammer of the revolver, click-clack. The sound was crisp, mechanical, and terrifyingly final. He aimed right between the creature's eyes. "Stay," Ronin commanded. The alien froze. It looked up into the barrel of the gun and then past it, into the eyes of the human holding it. It saw no hesitation there, it saw no fear. It saw only the absolute certainty of death. The creature slumped back, surrendering. The silence that returned to the room was different this time. It wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence of awe. Xylos stared, his mouth hanging open. The guards lowered their high-tech rifles, looking from the defeated assassin to the old man in the dirty coat. The sensors on the wall were finally flashing red, belatedly detecting the intruder now that it was bleeding on the floor. Ronin slowly uncocked the revolver and holstered it. He wiped his paint-stained hand on the side of his coat, leaving a long gray streak on the canvas. It blended in with the other stains, oil, mud, blood. Just another layer of history. He looked at Xylos. The commander looked small. He looked like a child who had just realized the monsters under the bed were real, and his nightlight wouldn't save him. "The scanners," Xylos stammered, his voice trembling. They failed us. "Machines break," Ronin said, his voice dropping to that low, gravelly register. "They glitch. They run out of power. They get hacked." He walked over to the maintenance cart and grabbed a rag to wipe the rest of the sludge from his fingers. "People don't have to." "But how?" Xylos asked, stepping closer, looking at the human as if he were a wizard. "You couldn't see him. The odds of a blind strike connecting—" "I wasn't blind," Ronin corrected him sharply. He tossed the rag onto the cart. "I just stopped looking with my eyes. You fill a room with enough noise, electronics, panic, shouting, and you go deaf to the truth. You strip all that away and what's left is simple physics." He adjusted his hat again, turning to face the room full of stunned aliens. "Your technology is impressive, Commander. It's fast, it's shiny. It makes life easy, but it makes you lazy. It makes you soft. You think you're safe because a screen tells you you're safe." Ronin pointed a calloused finger at the unconscious assassin. "That thing relies on you trusting the screen. A man who relies on a machine to watch his back is a man who's going to die with a knife in it." He walked toward the blast doors. The guards parted for him like the Red Sea. They didn't just move out of his way. They retreated, giving him a wide berth of respect. They had seen something that defied their understanding of the universe. They had seen a human walk through the fire and come out untouched, armed with nothing but grit and a bucket of paint. "Clean this mess up," Ronin said over his shoulder. "And fix your damn sensors. Next time I might be on my lunch break." Xylos hurried to the control panel to override the lock. As the heavy doors hissed open, admitting the cool air of the corridor, Ronin paused. He turned back, his silhouette framed by the corridor lights. "One more thing, Commander." "Yes?" Xylos stood at attention, his posture rigid. "Don't confuse old with obsolete. A sword is old. It'll still cut you if you don't respect it." Ronin stepped out into the hallway. The door hissed shut behind him, sealing the sterile room away. He walked down the long metallic corridor, his footsteps heavy and rhythmic. Thud, thud, thud. He was tired. His shoulder ached where the impact had jarred him. His knees were stiff. He wasn't young anymore. But he was alive, and today that was enough. He knew what would happen next. The Federation would file a report. They would analyze the data. They would try to turn what he did into a formula, an algorithm. They would try to teach their soldiers to throw paint as a standard tactical maneuver. They would miss the point entirely. It wasn't about the paint. It wasn't about the gun. It was about the will to act. It was about standing firm when the lights go out and the world turns to chaos. It was about trusting yourself more than the system. That's a rare thing these days. We live in a world that wants to do everything for us. Drive our cars, fight our wars, think our thoughts. We are surrounded by safety nets and guardrails. But when the chips are down, when the power fails, when the enemy doesn't play by the rules, those nets vanish. And when they do, it's the ones with dirt under their fingernails and iron in their spines who are left standing. It's a dying breed, maybe. The world is moving on, getting faster, sleeker, softer. But as long as there are shadows in the dark, someone has to be ready to stand in the light. Someone has to be the wall that the storm breaks against. If you're the kind of person who understands that, who knows that the easy way is rarely the right way, then you know you aren't alone. There are still some of us left who value grit over gadgets. It's a brotherhood of the quiet ones. We don't shout on the internet. We don't ask for applause. We just do the work. Because the work needs doing, Ronin turned the corner and disappeared into the shadows of the station, a solitary figure in a galaxy of noise. 3 hours later, Commander Xylos stood before the High Council of Elders. The chamber was vast, dimly lit, and smelled of ancient incense. The elders, ancient beings of immense psychic power and political weight, sat on raised podiums. They looked down at Xylos with unreadable expressions. In the center of the room, a holographic replay of the incident hovered in the air. They watched it in silence. They watched the panic. They watched the failure of their billion-credit sensor grid. And they watched the human. They watched the paint fly. They watched the brutal, efficient takedown. They watched a man dismantle their greatest fear with the casual ease of a mechanic fixing a leaky pipe. He used construction material, the High Elder murmured. His voice was old, dry as dust. Yes, High Elder, Xylos replied, his head bowed. And a kinetic projectile weapon. Ancient technology. Yes, High Elder. And he disabled a Specter, a threat that has eluded our fleets for a decade in under 5 seconds. Yes. The High Elder leaned forward, his many eyes narrowing. We have spent generations perfecting our technology, Commander. We have removed error. We have removed biological weakness. Or so we thought, and yet this relic humiliated our entire security doctrine. He called it physics, High Elder, Xylos said quietly. He said we were lazy. There was a long silence. It was the uncomfortable silence of powerful men realizing they are naked. Perhaps, another elder said slowly, we have become too comfortable. We have forgotten what it means to hunt. We have forgotten that survival is not a calculation. It is a fight. He said something else, Xylos added, risking a glance upward. He said, don't confuse old with obsolete. The High Elder looked at the frozen image of Ronin standing over the defeated assassin. The human looked tired in the recording. He looked worn out, his coat was stained. His face was lined with the map of a hard life. But he looked undeniable, he looked like a force of nature. Keep him, the High Elder commanded. Whatever he wants, whatever he costs. Keep him and find more like him, if they exist. Xylos nodded. I believe they are rare, High Elder, but I will look. The council adjourned. Xylos walked back to the security wing, his mind racing. He passed the spot where the fight had happened. The cleaning bots had scrubbed the floor spotless. The sensors were humming with green lights. All clear, the screens read. Xylos stared at the screen. He tapped the glass with a claw. It felt cold, impersonal. Then he reached out and turned the monitor off. The screen went black. Xylos stood in the silence. He listened. He heard the ventilation fans. He heard the hum of the reactor deep in the station's belly. He closed his eyes. He tried to feel the air on his face. It was hard. His mind kept reaching for the data, for the comfort of the numbers. But he forced himself to wait, to feel, to trust his own senses. It was a small step, but it was a start. Ronin was in the mess hall, sitting alone at a corner table. The room was empty during the night cycle, save for the hum of the vending units. He had a bowl of something that looked like stew, brown, lumpy, hot, and a mug of black coffee that smelled like battery acid and heaven. Xylos approached him. The human didn't look up, but Xylos knew he was aware of him. He probably heard the click of his chitin on the floor plates. The council was impressed, Xylos said, standing by the table. Ronin grunted, spooning stew into his mouth. They usually are when they don't die. It's a low bar. They want you to train a squad, Xylos said. They want you to teach our elite forces how to do what you do. Ronin finally looked up. He took a sip of his coffee, wincing slightly at the heat. You can't teach this in a classroom, Commander. You can't download it into their brains. You can't put it in a manual. Then how, Xylos asked. How do we learn? You have to live it, Ronin said. You have to survive it. You have to be cold, wet, hungry, and scared, and you still have to do your job. You have to fail and then get back up. Then show them, Xylos said. Take them into the field. Strip away the technology. Take away the sensors and the shields. Make them see. Ronin looked at the alien. He saw the fear in Xylos's eyes, but he also saw something else. Something new, a spark. The creature was terrified of the unknown, but he was standing there asking for the hard road. He was asking to be broken so he could be rebuilt. It'll hurt, Ronin warned. I won't go easy on them. Most of them will quit the first day. Some of them might break completely. I don't coddle. We were broken today, Xylos said softly. By one assassin, we were helpless. We need to be stronger. We need iron in our spines, as you said. Ronin smiled. It was a faint, dry thing, barely moving his mustache, but it was there. He recognized that tone. It was the tone of a recruit who finally understands what the uniform means. All right, Ronin said. 600 hours tomorrow. Cargo Bay 4. Tell them to leave their armor in the barracks. Tell them to leave their scanners. And tell them to bring their running boots. We're going to run until they forget what a computer looks like. Thank you, Ronin, Xylos said, bowing his head slightly. Don't thank me yet, Ronin muttered, going back to his stew. You haven't seen me before I've had my second cup of coffee. I'm not a pleasant man in the morning. As Xylos walked away, leaving the human to his meal, the commander felt a strange sense of confidence. The station was still floating in the dark void of space. The threats were still out there, specters, pirates, cosmic horrors. The universe was still cold and indifferent, but they had a human. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. Ronin finished his meal in silence. He thought about the squad he would have to train. They would be soft. They would be reliant on tech. They would whine. It was going to be a nightmare. But then he remembered the look on Xylos's face when he turned off the monitor. The fire isn't out yet. It's just been smothered by convenience. It's waiting for a little wind to fan the flames. He finished the coffee, the bitter taste grounding him. He stood up, his joints popping again. Tomorrow would be a long day. There was work to do. Hard work, dirty work. And as any man worth his salt knows, the work doesn't do itself. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to show up day after day, whether you feel like it or not. Ronin picked up his tray and walked to the disposal unit. He adjusted his coat, checking the weight of the revolver on his hip. He was ready. If any more invisible monsters decided to come knocking, well, he still had half a can of paint left. That's the thing about being prepared. It's not about paranoia. It's about responsibility. It's about knowing that when the storm comes, and the storm always comes, you won't be the one screaming for help. You'll be the one offering it. There's a peace in that. A quiet, heavy peace. If you know that feeling, if you've ever stood watch while your family slept, if you've ever checked the locks one last time, not out of fear but out of duty, then you know, you're part of the line, hold it. Ronin walked out of the mess hall, his heavy boots echoing on the deck. A warrior in a garden of politicians, a wolf among sheepdogs. The galaxy was loud, but he was quiet. And in the end, the quiet ones are the only ones you need to worry about.